We got Erica Weston. Say it ain't so. She's leaving us after 4 years. So we want to talk about the Cardinals and her time here in St. Louis. Erica, thanks for joining us.
Of course, Charlie. I couldn't leave St. Louis without hopping on the radio with you.
I know, and we'll get to all the memory lane stuff and where you're going in a bit. I'm sure you can say a little bit, but maybe not everything. But I wanted to focus on the Cardinals to start. So be honest with us. Did you see this coming? And not the 17-game winning streak. I don't think anybody saw that coming. But how surprised are you at the Cardinals that tomorrow they'll be in the National League wildcard game?
I'm pretty stunned, I'm not going to lie. And I no disrespect to the Cardinals and what they've been able to do this season. Just all signs indicated that it was not going to end this way for the 2021 season. I mean, you saw how historically bad the month of June was, and July wasn't a lot better. Of course, they needed help, plus this historic 17-game win streak. So, yeah, I mean, I did not see this happening after, the first half or so was completed. I did not see them going to the postseason, but they proved us all wrong, and literally everything came together at the right exact moment. So here's what you get. You get a chance to go on the show and go against the reigning World Series champions.
And I think it's easy to say the turning point was right when they go on the 17-game winning streak, but a lot of things kind of changed, and minor adjustments throughout the season led to them playing better baseball and then going on this amazing run in the month of September. What do you think changed? If you had to point to a couple turning points, what do you think made the difference for the Cardinals this year?
I know somebody said the other day that one of the big turning points was moving Tyler O'Neill in the order and putting him between Goldie and Arenado in the lineup. And for the offense, sure, that might have been the case, but I think that was more indicative of what we saw during the stretch of the 17-game win streak. For me, though, I think it was more about the pitching, and I think it was first the acquisition of Wade LeBlanc in the bullpen, then moving him into the rotation, and then you have the trade deadline acquisitions with Jay Happ and John Lester. I think that stabilized so much more than just the rotation. It gave them a sense of veteran leadership. Not that they don't have that, but they were certainly missing an aspect of that as far as the pitching goes. I remember when Wade LeBlanc got here and the conversation was, okay, are we going to see him in the rotation? He would tell me things like, these guys have way better stuff than me, so there's no excuse for them not to be throwing strikes. So he was a good example, one of the first few. Not, again, no disrespect to Adam Wainwright. Of course, he is the example. He is the epitome of a good example for the Cardinals this season, more than just what he's doing on the baseball field. That being said, there was so much more that stabilized their team because of the pitching, because they saw consistency. They weren't walking a ton of guys at historic rates, at a historic clip. I think it was, for me, it was Wade LeBlanc's acquisition and then Lester and Happ settling in. And you saw how much things changed with their numbers and their stuff when they got to work with Mike Maddox. So there were certainly variables, but a lot of it, for me, in my opinion, comes from the fact that the offense was stabilized because they knew that these guys weren't just going to be walking a bunch of guys and they're standing out there waiting to see if we can play some defense behind them and then having to go back in the batter's box. So for me, that was the turning point.
We're talking with Erica Weston, who's leaving us, unfortunately, after 4 years at Bally Sports Midwest. You mentioned Adam Wainwright. We were having some fun yesterday with who's your MVP of the 2021 Cardinals. I usually don't like to choose a pitcher for an MVP because you could go, okay, who's the Cy Young for the team? But you have some pretty good options. And I think Adam Wainwright this year, he was such a stopper in the sense that I don't think they ever get to this point if Adam Wainwright seemingly doesn't stop like 8 different losing streaks. And every time they gave him the ball, he would just kind of stop the bleeding and restabilize things. But there's a lot of other good options like a Tyler O'Neill, Paul Goldschmidt. Who Erica Weston, is your 2021 Cardinals MVP and why?
I think if you take away maybe the first month of the season, you could say perhaps it's Paul Goldschmidt, but I unquestionably would have to give it to Adam Wainwright because, like you mentioned, stopping those multiple losing streaks for the Cardinals at so many different points this season. I don't know that we predicted that he was going to be this effective for the full 162. Last year was a complete toss-up, with the shortened season. They ended up only playing 58 games. But to me, it's Adam Wainwright, hands down. And you don't want him to be in the situation where he has to be your stopper every fifth day, but that's the position he found himself in, and he thrived in it. I remember at one point he had said to me, you know, if you don't like the pressure, then you're in the wrong business of being put in that situation this season to be the ace and to be the stopper. So it's him. It's no question. The Cardinals would not be in the wild card race if it wasn't for Adam Wainwright this season, period.
We're talking with Erica Weston. Now, I'm a positive person. I'm an optimistic person. But over the course of a season, especially the baseball season, you know, can be such a grind. And for a while there, the Cardinals were not playing that well. They're hovering around 500. And Mike Shilt also is the eternal optimist, where I think sometimes people are like, hey, just call somebody out, throw something. I mean, here and there, we saw that a little bit. But what's it been like for you covering Mike Shilt? And, you know, before the game, we talk with him, and then after the game, and he's always so positive. And then, look, at the end of the year, they go on this run. The Cardinals seem to always do that. And maybe that works for a sport like baseball, where it's not football, where you react a ton to one game. You only play 16 or 17 games. They're playing every single day. And I do think, even though we can kind of chirp him here or there, the optimism from Mike Shilt over the course of 6 months, I think the team does kind of that resonates with the team.
Absolutely. And listen, like you said, this is every single day. So that whole month of June and then a lot of July, when we just weren't seeing what he was talking about, we weren't seeing the results that he was saying are going to happen, it can be frustrating as a fan. And I understand that. And then you're listening to him every day. But listen, we're not dealing with a Tony La Russa, right? Mike Shilt manages and speaks in a very, very different situation, in a very different way. And I think that he has gained a lot of the respect of his players and everybody else in the game, in the way that he, no question, will have his guys back regardless of what happens. And we saw that, you know, in the situation with Alex Reyes when he lost the closing job. Mike Shilt wasn't glossing over that. He was being as honest about it as he could, talking about having to reevaluate that without completely throwing Alex under the bus, and deservedly so. And, you know, Alex is a young guy in the game that he's trying to, you know, still find his way in this game and figure out where he wants to be. He missed so much time with injury. So I understand the frustration day in and day out, why, okay, he's the eternal optimist. I just want him to get mad and do something or say something, see if it lights a spark. But that's not who he is. That's not who he is as a manager or as a person. So, yeah, I get it. But at the end of the day, for me personally, it was a delight covering him. I didn't really have a lot of time with Mike Massini prior to him being dismissed, and then when Mike Shilt took over. So for me, here with the Cardinals, he's been wonderful to deal with, and I think everybody saw that immediately when he took over the reins of this team, and he welcomed me in, said, you know, very candidly, if there's anything I can do to help you, make you feel more comfortable, and I appreciate that. You know, it's tough being a woman in a male-dominated industry and traveling on the charter and being with the team on the road. You see these people all the time, and you learn to gain their trust. So for him, opening the door, extending an olive branch, saying, we got you, you know, you have us, it was really, really appreciated. And it's something I'll remember for the rest of my time in sports.
And Erica, you mentioned, you know, it being tough being a woman in this industry. Also, I feel like, with that being said, though, lately, a lot of sports are having more women in more prominent roles. Lisa Byington, who I used to work with, is going to be the play-by-play voice of the Milwaukee Bucks. You have Melanie Newman, who does the Orioles games, and she's doing national games as well. Do you feel like sports overall in Major League Baseball, they're taking positive steps in that direction?
Absolutely. This year, I think, has been the biggest indicator of that, right? With, as you just mentioned, with Lisa Byington taking over for the NBA. I think there was another one that got a full-time play-by-play role in the NBA as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's becoming more commonplace. This isn't out of the norm anymore. Hearing Melanie Newman calling a baseball game on ESPN with Jessica Mendoza, like, that's huge. I don't think, as males in this business around it, don't understand the ripple effect that something like that can have on a younger audience. Oh, I hear her. This is something I can do. I see her. I know this is something I can do. So I'm thrilled that we're not really going to have to answer this question a lot moving forward, because it's just becoming so normal and so commonplace. And everybody has put in the work and shown that it can be done, and you can be trusted to be in the play-by-play seat and not having played that particular sport. It takes a lot of work, But the same goes for men that didn't play the sport professionally either. So I'm just so happy for them that they are continuing to blaze this trail that women set before them, and that it's not becoming that big of a deal anymore, that we're just so happy, and then we move on with our lives because they've earned this great opportunity.
Absolutely. And so with the baseball games the next couple days here, with the American League Wild Card game, with the National League Wild Card game, and we'll focus on the Cardinals, but just from a branding standpoint, I mean, you have the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cardinals, the Dodgers. I can't wait to watch these games. First, with the Cardinals, when you look at that game, we have so many storylines with the Cardinals, but also Max Scherzer, Albert Pujols, everything going on with the Cardinals and Dodgers. Go back to the 80s, go back to 2013, 2014. When you look at this game, what kind of stands out, what you're interested in watching, and how do you think this game could play out?
I mean, pretty much all the storylines that you mentioned, right? I mean, with the injury to Max Muncy, you're going to see Albert Pujols in there, so that's obviously a huge storyline. You've got the former St. Louisan and Max Scherzer going against his former hometown team. You've got Adam Wainwright, who is, St. Louis's son now. We claim him as ours now because of what he's done here. And he's been, and as we talked about, the MVP for this team, and he's been so steady all season long. The two wild card games, though, as you mentioned, are, ratings gold between these four ball clubs. This is exactly, I'm sure, what MLB would have wanted as far as the competitive nature and all of the storylines going in. I can't wait to see what happens. I know that on paper, the Dodgers are far and away the favorite, but they're catching a hot Cardinals team where everything is clicking. And I know the Dodgers, at the end of the regular season, they swept Milwaukee. It was really impressive. They ended up not winning the division after, I don't even know, 7, 8, 9 consecutive division titles, whatever that was. So they might be catching LA at a little bit of a vulnerable moment, particularly with the injury to Max Muncy. But that being said, you have to look at the numbers, right? Because that's what we do. And you see a lot of the guys in the Cardinals lineup struggle mightily, as do most people in baseball, against Max Scherzer. So honestly, it could very well be a coin flip to me, in my opinion, because Cardinals are just so hot and everything is clicking for them at the right time, even though you have this behemoth in the Dodgers.
And Erica, I know you've worked in LA in the past, so I can't remember which years, if you were there. Were you there in 13, 14?
I was. Yes.
Okay.
I was that. I remember the playoff game. The benches cleared almost immediately at Dodger Stadium. So yeah, I know being on both sides of how this rivalry works.
Right, and that was the whole Mickey Mouse stuff. That was a lot of fun with Yasiel Puig and Adrian Gonzalez and Adam Wainwright. And so I'm wondering, because you have a pulse on the Dodgers fan base as well. I know the Dodgers the last 10 years, they've been so great. They finally win the World Series last year. They got the huge payroll. They got 106 wins. But I'm thinking, if I'm a Dodgers fan, just because of what happened 13, 14, I think there'd still be some PTSD there. What do you think Dodgers fans, when they saw it was going to be the Cardinals? I feel like even though they're 16 games better this year, they just can't love that matchup.
They hate the Cardinals to their core, and it goes back to all of these intense playoff matchups. I mean, what do we as Cardinals fans love to bring up more than anything, right? It's the Matt Adams home run off of Clayton Kershaw into the bullpen. They hate the Cardinals with a passion, and understandably so. They have kicked their butts a few times in the postseason, but of course the Dodgers have the upper hand right now because they are the reigning World Series champions. But it was interesting the last couple of seasons talking to my friends in LA about the regular season matchups between the Dodgers and the Cardinals, because they're thinking, we've got the big bad Cardinals coming into town, all of these memories of these horrific playoff losses come into town, and I come in thinking, yeah, but the Cardinals are struggling right now, and you guys have won, a handful of consecutive division titles. You're on pace to win over 100 games. This is very different than what the teams were talking about in the past. Matt Carpenter, they see them in their nightmares nightly. I am sure of it. So there's a lot of bad blood there for Dodgers fans. They do not enjoy this draw getting the Cardinals, that's for sure.
So, Erica, if the Cardinals win this game, and we know it's going to be tough, but how do you think the Cardinals put together a game to win this game? When we go the pick the click, what has to happen, or what's the blueprint for the Cardinals to beat Max Scherzer tomorrow night?
I think it's something that we saw down the stretch during the 17-game win streak, right? The Dodgers are going to get some runs on Adam Wainwright. That we know is going to happen because it's the Dodgers, and it could be as little as 1 or 2 runs. But the key for the Cardinals, I think, is going to be, okay, can we take a punch, and now it's time for us to fight back. The offense needs to come in, and they have to support Waino because the Dodgers offense is a behemoth. They know that they can get runs on the board and do so immediately. But like we saw during the stretch run for the Cardinals towards the end of the regular season, it felt like if they were down, it was only a matter of time before they were able to fight and claw and get their way back in, tie things up, win it in a walk-off, what have you. So that, for me, will be the key. The offense has to know, okay, Max Scherzer has been looking a little bit more pedestrian his last few times out. The numbers aren't great. Goldie struggles. He pitches Arenado very tough. Yachty struggles. Tommy Edman is one of the only guys in that lineup that has success against Max Scherzer in the last couple of seasons. So Cardinals are just going to have to know deep down inside, if we can get Max out eventually, if we find ourselves down, we know we can get back in this race because we've done it so many times down the stretch for the regular season. So I don't think that the Cardinals feel like they're second fiddle to the Dodgers, even though everybody on the outside, even on the national scale, is saying, oh, they don't have a chance. Cardinals know they have a chance, and they do. And Adam Wainwright gives them that chance, but they got to fight back, and they have to be ready for that.
Couple more minutes here with Erica Weston, formerly of Bally Sports Midwest. So of your, 4 years here, you basically had half of that with all this craziness with COVID. And I know it's gotten better from a media standpoint this last year, but what's that been like for you the last couple of years, just dealing with all of the restrictions and masks and Zooms and all that?
It's been really tough, and I think everybody kind of feels similarly about that. You know, you go from being with the team constantly, traveling on the charter, being with them on road trips, away, you know, together on road trips for a week and a half at a time, and now we just don't get that. It's just very limited. I know we all struggle with how we're able to report, and again, you mentioned it's gotten better, so it's crazy to think that almost half my time has been dealt with the pandemic. That's depressing to think about, so thank you for that, Charlie.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not going to – of course, we're all going to remember, you know, what happened, where we were, what we were doing when life and sports shut down at the start of the pandemic last year. But when I look back on my time in St. Louis, it's not going to be having to work through the pandemic, how we had to adapt and change our coverage. It's going to be, you know, the incredible run winning the Stanley Cup. It's going to be my first time in the clubhouse getting the beer and the champagne sprayed everywhere. It's going to be finally figuring out how to forge relationships and trust and bonds with the coaching staff and members of the team and trying to gain their trust and earn their respect. The same goes for the Blues and just how incredible they were to deal with. That's what I'll remember, even though, yeah, it's been a struggle the last year and a half, and hockey looked very different. Doing road games for all of us, Jim, Dan included, looks very different. So we have to alter that. But again, that's not going to be what I remember, and that's not going to be what I take away from my time here.
I love it because you're an optimist like me, like Mike Shilt. That's how it should be. And you mentioned the Blues. You know, I'm a baseball guy, but for me, from a media standpoint, I've never had more fun than covering the 2019 Blues. There was just something about that team and everything going along with it, with Layla, with Gloria, with the fact that you built through 2 months of a postseason. The city was just on fire, just loving this team. What was that like from your standpoint? I'm guessing that's got to be up there with one of your favorite moments and favorite teams to cover.
It's going to be hard to top that moving forward in my career in sports broadcast for sure. You know, who knows what's to come down the road, but just the fact that you have all of this historic stuff happening during that run. And as you know, covering hockey players is so enjoyable because they're so chill and laid back. No disrespect to the Cardinals. It's just a very different atmosphere, and they understand you have a job to do, and they're all so nice about it, and they get it. So making that, being part of it and part of that historic run, I guess was just a bonus, getting to talk to these guys who are just so kind and friendly and just, you know, ready to give you whatever you need as far as interview content. So that's really awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's a movie. We're going to say that forever. The 2019 Stanley Cup run for the Blues is a movie. And I don't even know how to describe it moving forward to people outside of St. Louis that weren't here to experience it with me. It was pure magic. I will never forget it. I was so tired going back and forth between Cardinals and hockey down the stretch that season, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I was absolutely exhausted, running on adrenaline, and it was the best experience I've ever been lucky enough to be a part of.
And I know you probably can't say everything, but can you tell us about where maybe you'll be or what you're doing next?
Yeah, I'm not leaving the business, not leaving sports, not leaving these two particular sports by any means, but I am going back to Los Angeles, and I'm sure you guys will see me someday soon covering similar sports, and that's pretty much all I can say.
Interesting.
But I will see all of you guys down the road, I have no doubt.
Love it. Well, Erica, great job in your 4 years here, and thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. I'm sure you're going to continue to do great things in the industry, and I know you've enjoyed your time in St. Louis, and all the folks here really loved your work. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that, Charlie. Likewise. Take care.
All right. That's Erica Weston, formerly of Bally Sports Midwest, who's moving on back to L.A.